Good morning, y'all. All right, we're gonna talk about how to create a culture that weathers storms. By the end of this, you're gonna know how we've been able to maintain team members for 3+ years that have been with our team, that even our COO today started as an appointment setter 3 years ago. He's going to his 4th year with us. We've got 7 other team members that have been here 2+ years. And I'm gonna show you how to create a culture that can weather storms, because the reality of business, y'all, is, man, it gets tough. Just a couple things. And by the way, I'm just gonna dive right into this way. It's a quick one for you. You guys can take your golden nuggets from this, apply them as you can. And I promise you, if you can do this, this is something that's gonna completely change the trajectory of your business, but it's not an immediate thing, right? If you get like a sales script, or an appointment setting script like that, you'll see an immediate result as you get on a sales call. This is different, man. This is like turning the Titanic, okay? It's slower, but it'll put you on the right course. Number one, you've got to understand your values, okay? And a lot of this stuff, y'all, is probably gonna be boring to you, but the reality is business is boring, okay? When it comes to building a business, it's boring. When it comes to weathering storms, what you have to do is fundamental and is boring. Okay, so number one is you have to understand your values. These are gonna be things like, what is it that everyone does that makes things the same when you make decisions? You guys embody the same things, okay? This is usually where culture goes south when a business owner starting to have success removes themselves from the business, but there's no decision-making SOP, system operating procedure, in order to execute the same types of decision making that the business owner would have had. This is something we've gotten better over time at doing, is creating SOPs, because before it was just me living by what I do, right, and who I am, and everybody seeing me do that, me making the decisions. But when you move to something referred to as decentralized management, which we have another training on, when you move to doing more decentralized management, the problem with that is you're not involved in the decision making, so there needs to be some type of SOP for how decisions are made, and those decisions need to be based off of a few things, this being one of them, values, okay? So what are the things that you absolutely have non-negotiables around when it comes to values? Next is gonna be character. This is something that a lot of people, let alone business owners, will actually embrace. Character are the things that you actually do, who you actually are. These are things like, do you show up on time? That's actually one thing that I have failed to do consistently over the years. And guess what? People show up to meetings late. It's because I do not prioritize it. You know, I used to have a mentor that said 2 minutes early is 5 minutes late. You know, he was in the military, but like the reality is, it's true. Like if you are not early, you're late. And if you start to be 1 or 2 minutes late instead of 1 to 2 minutes early, guess what? That builds culture, okay? And your culture will encompass people being 1 to 2 minutes late rather than 1 to 2 minutes early, which will end up making them late for every single meeting the entire day, because instead of being done with their meetings 1 to 2 minutes early, they're gonna be done with them 1 to 2 minutes late, making them late for every single meeting, okay? That's character. Another example of character is, do you keep your promises to people? Like our entire team knows that I keep promises. When I say something's gonna happen, it happens. It may not happen in a straight line exactly the way we want it to, but that shit takes place, okay? The next thing is morning routines. Like I believe strongly, I put my name on the grave with it, is a morning routine will set you up for success. I live it, I embody it, and guess what? Our team does it too, okay? This is not an accident, okay? This is, again, culture, okay, is what you're building there. You need to embody these things. They cannot just be words on paper. When you write them down and you choose to ignore them and you do something other than what is listed down, which again, if you make a decision-making SOP for these, they need to be written down so people can see them and actually know what they are. When you go against these things, it makes them less credible. It devalues these things, okay? Which again, builds a culture, whether you like it or not. You're building a culture that is promoting to devalue the things that we find important. And then slowly over time, people will start to say, oh, it's just a little different off what's on paper, so I'm gonna do it anyway, I'm sure it's okay. They start moving further into the gray until a new culture is built. That was not the culture that you had built the company on. Now, sometimes it can be powerful and effective. Sometimes it won't be. powerful and effective. When you're a smaller company, it usually is the latter, not powerful and effective. Next thing is when in your weekly meetings and daily in your life, you have got to talk about your vision. Okay, this is something that is not done enough, and a lot of CEOs are typically the visionaries. With your vision, you have to say it, have it written down in your all-team meeting and presentation that you do, but talk about it every day. We're on a mission to develop the world's most universally applicable sales system, sales team development platform. That's our mission, and our vision is to make sure that every company is using one of our resources to help them develop that inside of their company, okay? We wanna have that in all the big businesses in America. And to do something like that is obviously gonna take something, it's gonna take a long period of time. We don't always know what the vehicle is, but if you look at other big companies, you'll notice that their visions are the same. Look at Google, look at Tesla, look at Apple. You're gonna notice the vision sounds insanely big. Like Google's like to consolidate the world's information, it's something like that. And when you look at things like that, you're like, well, how are you gonna do it? The vision is not the vehicle. The vision is where you wanna end up. And it's got to be bigger than everybody on the team, because then it requires everybody on the team to get there. There's a saying called it takes a village. This is why, okay? So again, when you do this, you are developing culture. Now, whether you want to or not, culture is being built. If it's not being built and controlled by you as a CEO and the C-level executives, then culture is being developed by somebody else on the team. So whether you want it to happen or not, culture is happening in your company. If you're like, half of our team left, or the team's fighting on this or whatever, that's because you had no clear SOP in place on how to make proper decisions, okay? And people are not holding each other accountable to these values and characteristics that they need to reference in order to be successful in maintaining the culture that built the company initially. A strong foundation. When you can do this, and more importantly, when the storm hits, and you can do this, when the storm hits, you've got to hold strong to the SOP that you have around decision making that had built your culture initially, because that's when it matters. When the storm hits, if you're like, actually, I changed my mind, I don't want to follow these things anymore, they seem too hard, I don't want to do them anymore. It's like, I do right by people myself, regardless of the cost. And when you do right by people, there is a cost associated with that, but there's also a lot of leverage associated with that. When the storm hits, typically the cost is greater. But as the storm subsides, your leverage increases, okay? Your name appreciates. And at the end of the day, your company name, your personal name only appreciates or depreciates over time. And obviously the goal is have the dividends increase over time rather than depreciate. So it's really important to make sure that when you build your culture, that you don't just do it when times are easy, you hold to it when times are tough. We've weathered many of storms over the last 5 years we've been in business. And in the last 5 years, we've had team members for going into their 4th year with us. That gives you an example of how long they've been running through the fire with us. I want to let you know, if you can do this and create an SOP around values, characteristics, and ways you make decisions, it's going to embody a culture that can reinforce decentralized management, which we have a different video on decentralized management on YouTube. You can check this out and understand this is how you build something that weathers storms, so your entire team doesn't bail out during the storm, because storms are inevitable, right? Where good exists, bad has to exist. That means that existence is still here. When you don't have good existing with bad, that means you're dead, typically. And so it's important to see that as a positive thing when bad things happen, because that means that everything is still coexisting and you get to wake up to another day of opportunity. Okay, when you shift to that mindset, the world changes. All right, so I hope this video is helpful for y'all. Kick some ass this week. If you want us to come in and work with you and your company on these things and building everything out for you, that's what we do at the sales agency. I'll include a link around this video. You could inquire and we'll call you and just, ask you a few questions. But outside of that, y'all, kick some ass this week, and I'll see you in the next video.